Yeah.
All right. Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Arlisha Wilson. I'm the chair of today's meeting. Today is Monday, June 23rd. We're going to call to order here at 9:30. I'll ask our Madam Secretary to read the preamble.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm going to read the preamble for you this morning, this Monday, June 23rd. In compliance with notification requirements of the city's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found on the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Please note that those calling in can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. All requests to speak on a particular matter have been considered. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Can we call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Roca?
Present.
Ms. Bates?
Present.
Sulzer?
Present.
Mr. Madison?
Present.
Ms. Wilson?
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum with 5 members.
All right. Perfect. Do we have any postponements or withdrawals today?
We do. The first item on the agenda is calendar number 25-086 at 866 East 185th Street. Charlie Braun, owner, proposed change use from office to salon in a retail space in a local retail business district. Madam Chair, the city has withdrawn the adjudication. It's my understanding that there have been some changes and there need to be updates to the adjudication. So we will see them in the future, but not today. They will apply again if a variance is needed.
Okay. That sounds good. If you are here for that calendar item, which is at 866 East 185th, that case will not be heard today. Any other postponements or withdrawals?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, calendar number.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know, but he reached out, I spoke to Xavier,
Mhm.
and he said if I submitted that information.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. You may or may not need a variance with that new information. So I guess work with Xavier and Building and Housing to get that new adjudication.
All right. Well, sorry for the confusion, but thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck to you. All right. Do we have other postponements or withdrawals, Madam Secretary?
We do. Calendar number 25-092 at 3601 West Park Road, 780 East Smith Road LLC, proposed to change use from a gym to event center in a local retail zoning business district. Madam Chair, it is my understanding that the appellant is traveling and is not able to make the meeting this morning, but it should also be noted that they are working with city planning and the community on getting more information to the community. So they cannot go forward today.
All right. That sounds good. So if you're here for the case at 3601 West Park Road, we will not go forward with that matter today. Any other postponements or withdrawals?
No, Madam Chair, if we could give that one a date,
Okay.
July 21st or July 28th. I believe we have full quorum on both those days.
Okay. Let's go with the 21st.
Okay. Okay, so calendar number 25-092 at 3601 West Park Road is postponed to July 21st.
Perfect. All right. So that concludes our postponements and withdrawals.
Yes, it does.
We will now call the first case we have on the agenda, which I am showing as calendar number 25-088. Do we have Richard Wilden present? Wilden, sorry about that. You can come forward, and while you do that, I'll have Ms. Hoser read in the case.
Good morning. Our first case is calendar number 25-088. This is at 2608 Chatham Avenue. Richard Wilden, owner, proposes to construct a new two-family residence with an attached garage in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are two. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll hand it back to you for the oath.
Okay,
Okay,
that sounds
cool.
good. I will now swear in all who are present for this case. You'll raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, spell your name, and give your address. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I'll start with you.
Excuse me, sir. Make sure you tap that red square and the.
Yes.
Thanks.
It's Amanda Weldon. I spell my name.
Please.
Okay, AMANDAWILDEN. Address is 1951 West 26th Street, apartment 201, Cleveland, Ohio, 44102.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth?
44113.
Have to get this up.
You know, you go back to these old addresses that come back.
Rattles off.
Also, I have all kinds of wacky things in my brain.
You swear to tell the truth?
Oh, absolutely.
Swear. You'll state your name, spell your name, give your address, and swear.
It's Rich Wilden, Wilden. Address is 1951 West 26th Street, apartment 201, Cleveland.
And do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else looking to speak in this matter? All right, hearing none, we will go now to history of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned multifamily in 1929. In 1956, it was upgraded to the two-family residential district. We found in our Records Administration Office that in 1997, permits were issued to board up all openings in the building. And then in 1998, a permit was issued to demolish a 1.5 frame single-family dwelling. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Can we have legal, please?
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant is requesting area variances from the attached garage and rear lot depth requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
All right, thank you for that. I will now turn to you. Who wants to speak first?
I will.
Okay,
Yeah, we're proposing actually a single family home. I tried to get that corrected for my wife and myself. And I'm the architect as well. And we've been designing this for a few years. I went before the Housing Design Review Subcommittee in 2021. And we discussed a few issues, and one is the garage variance, which they accepted the solution, which we'll talk about. And then we tabled the project for a couple of years and hoping to get it built starting this year. So the two variances that we're requesting is one for the rear yard setback. The hardship, I think, was it's pretty accepted by staff that it's a small piece of property and the zoning was written for a different time and a different housing market than exists today. So to get sort of a normal size house, we're about a little over 2,500 square feet and 3 stories. We need to, reduce that rear setback by a little bit. So we have a 1-story garage projection into the rear setback, and then the house itself is not the full compliance. And then the other variance is the front-facing garage. Again, we're hamstringed by the size of the lot, and we have no rear access to an alley, so we have to, the only way to get a car into the site is from the front. Our preference is to have the garage that's shown on a plan on the screen right now, which is within the front half of the property, and integrating the garage into the facade of the building. So it's in a 3-story facade, and it's recessed from the floors above. And we're proposing an upgraded garage, frosted glass, so it's visually more attractive. The sort of fallback plan we have is the next page, where we show what the Housing Design Review Subcommittee accepted back in 2021, which was to push the front wall of the garage more than half the depth of the property, and then sort of recessing that within the facade of the building. So we would have a covered driveway essentially leading back to there, and that would push the garage door back. That would reduce the garage to 1 car instead of a 2-car tandem as originally proposed. And, in my opinion, aesthetically, it'd be less desirable because you'd be looking into this parking area, and it would be kind of dark and uninviting, and not the best thing to walk by if you're a pedestrian. So those are the 2 variances, and certainly happy to answer any questions or discuss anything you'd like to go through.
All right, thank you for that. Did you have anything to add, Amanda?
Yeah, I guess I'd just add that we've gone to the, our block club, and we've gotten a lot of support, and, like, I believe a letter was submitted, and, they're all in support of it. I mean,
Okay.
we've owned the property for over 10 years, and we've lived in our, current building since 2008. So we've been in our neighborhood for quite a bit of time, and we're very committed to our community, and everyone is excited for us and very supportive of this project, and they can't wait to see it being built. So
Okay.
we waited a long time. And this has been put on hold a lot. So we want to move forward. Things keep holding us up. We're just at a point where we want to get it done.
Okay, thank you for that. Any correspondence, Madam Secretary?
I do not see a letter in here.
Tim Del Papa submitted a letter for this south of Lorraine. He did say that it was received.
Okay, Madam Chair, if you'd like, I can dig into our online email and see if it's
Okay,
to our main box.
okay, that sounds good. Any questions from the board while she does that?
Madam Chair, to the appellant, couple of questions. Could you reiterate again what that garage door material is going to be, and also need to know the distance from the sidewalk to the garage, please?
Yes. Get that dimension, Madam Chair. What we're proposing for the garage door material is steel or aluminum frame with frosted glass panels, and there's an image of a similar project in the package. The distance from the sidewalk to the garage door is approximately 14 feet.
All right.
And
Ms.
we would not be parking in that space. So full intention is we're not those kind of people that block the driveways, which I think is behavior more than the configuration. So we would never be putting a car in the way of the sidewalk.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? All right, can we hear from city planning?
Good morning. My name is Xavier Bay. I'm representing city planning. So this, as was mentioned by the applicant, this site plan actually came through a couple of years ago and was approved by our previous HDRS or Housing Design Review Subcommittee group of staff. And so, yeah, at the time, I have on the screen now shows the original plan with the full length of the garage, and then here, I just switched over. You can see the garage being set back additional let's see here. Looks like it's an additional 15 feet. So this plan on screen now shows the beginning of the actual garage door being 32-foot setback. Our main, desire here is to see safe, a safely placed garage so that you have a little bit more time as a pedestrian and driver to see each other before any type of collision can happen. With that being said, I mean, we're recommending approval for the variance of the rear yard, and the previous plan was actually already approved by a small body of staff, so we'll just stay with that decision.
Okay, so am I to understand that we are moving forward with the iteration of the plan that has the garage closer to the street, sort of in line with the house?
You're speaking to the one on screen now?
Yes. Is this the one we are considering, or which one has been adjudicated is my question?
Yeah, actually, I believe the plan that was submitted to Building and Housing is the plan that actually has the Porte Cochere closer to the street.
Okay, do you all understand something different?
No, that is the plan that was approved a few years ago. We are asking this body for the variance to put the garage where we prefer. It's a 2-car tandem garage with the garage door set about 14 feet back from the sidewalk.
And that is not the one that says Porte
Correct, yeah.
Cochere?
Yeah, and that is our fallback. If the answer is no, then we understand we can go back to that plan.
Okay, Chief Leonard, can I confer with you on this? It looks like we have 2 plans before us. Which plan should the board approve? Which one has been adjudicated, rather?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Administrator. So the one on the right here, this is the one they're saying they're proposing now.
It's my understanding that, yes, this is the one they prefer, and the second one was a fallback. So I just want to be clear on the record about what the board is voting on.
Can you give me 1 second so I can just look and see what we adjudicated? This one
Of
was
course.
done a while back. Give me a few minutes.
Okay, no problem. While she does that, if there are any other questions from the board, please feel free to chime in.
I just want to be,
Madam Chair,
oh,
I would like to hear from the appellant just to have them explain how they're going to ensure that there are no pedestrian conflicts with the garage being where it is.
Absolutely. You want to speak to that?
Sure. I don't know that we can necessarily assure that, but visibility from someone driving a car backing out is no better in either plan because of the building above. There's a bearing wall to the west side of the driveway, and whether the door was there or in the approved position, it really wouldn't matter. But we still have a pretty good buffer, I think, that 14 feet to, get some visibility. And again, it's human beings' behavior. So, we're careful drivers. We're very pedestrian sensitive ourselves, being pedestrians. So we would be careful. And we'd do everything we could, not to block the sight lines with landscape or anything like that, which I know is another problem. Is that, for our own sake, we would want to have that visibility and safety built in.
Okay. Ms. Roca, does that answer your question?
Yeah, my next question was about the landscaping, but it sounds like you've addressed that you're not going to have landscaping that would further reduce visibility, correct?
Right. We'd be very sensitive to that and make sure that the right landscaping is picked and maintained as it needs to be so those sight lines are preserved.
Thank you.
If I can just contribute, I mean, we totally respect your concerns. We're a 1-car family. We are pedestrians. I mean, he's always talking about getting rid of the 1 car that we take out of the garage once every 2 weeks. And we do, one of our biggest frustrations is how people drive. And if someone does park and obstructs our path on the sidewalk and that sort of thing. So we understand the concerns. And like Rich said, the home next to us is right, it's a few feet. So arguably, it's not going to make a difference whether the garage door is there or not. And it's going to create, if it is a porte cochere, it could have vermin in there. There's skunks in the neighborhood. There's rodents. There's all kinds of things that are going to be hanging out in there, and that sort of thing, and garbage cans. And we're going to be putting the car in the back, so everything else is going to have to come to the front. So I don't think our neighbors aren't going to enjoy that. And like I said, our neighbors they supported the images that we presented.
Okay, there were other questions from the board?
I want to ask the hardship question, Madam Chair. So with the plans that you prefer, the ones with the garage door closer, what hardship would you guys experience if you were not granted these variances?
To the chair, several things. It would be security of the space, safety of our persons and our belongings in that space, because it would be exposed to the public realm, not the ability to secure it. Again, the dimensions of the property didn't allow us other configurations. We looked at driving around to the back of the house, things like that, just didn't have the maneuvering space. So the front facing was the only workable configuration. I don't know if aesthetics counts as a hardship, but it really detracts from the look of the house by having this open area with a garage door set 30 feet back. And
Okay, I think we have Chief Leonard back with us. You want to chime in on this?
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair. So they were adjudicated for, if you go back to the plans, as you can see here, the variances requested are for the attached garage not being in the rear half of the lot, so being in the front, as well as not being screened with that active use. So essentially the front-loaded garage is being requested here. So this plan here on the right without the porte cochere is what we adjudicated for. And then the 2-family district, the depth of the rear lot shall not be less than the height of the main building, which requires 35 feet, and they're proposing 8'6". So the plan that you see on the right with the garage door, the garage being almost in alignment with the front porch is what has been adjudicated for us here today.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you so much for confirming that. So with that, we are voting on this drawing that's on the screen. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, go ahead.
The only thing I can add, and I hate to add it, but we've had to make some decisions, like the last 2 years. What has created hiccups in our life is that I was diagnosed with MS 2 years ago. So we do have to plan for our future in the event, like the elevator has had to be added. And if we have to add a ramp and stuff like that for access in the rear of our garage and stuff like that, we have to think about looking forward. We're going to have to come back and ask for the garage door. We're going to have to ask for, this whole plan is designed to accommodate me in every respect. So, like I said, we moved into this community in December of 2008. We have been invested.
Okay.
So it's like,
I fully understand that this is a lot at stake for you. I fully hear the difficulty that you would face if you don't get the variance. So I'm going to move us now to a vote. Ms. Faith, were you going to make a motion?
Yes, if I may.
Please do.
Yes, hearing the testimony that we've heard today, the fact that the full garage door is going to be frosted glass, giving that translucent visual is something that we prefer to see. The fact that the garage is set back 14 feet from the sidewalk, the fact that the landscaping is planned so as not to any further block the sight lines. I think we also have to look at the context of the situation. Across the street is a parking lot, around the corner is a parking lot, and catty corner from them is another townhouse with a front entry garage that set some precedent. So with all that being said, I move that we approve calendar number 25-088.
All right, thank you for that, Ms. Faith. Is there a second?
Board Member Madison, second.
All right, can we call the vote, please?
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Mr. Madison?
Yes.
Ms. Faith?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Calendar number 25-088 is granted. It'll be ratified next week. We'll send you a letter. You can contact us next Wednesday for further instruction.
All right, you are all set here today. Good luck with your project. You're quite welcome. All right, we're now going to call the next case, which is calendar number 25-085. Do we have any representatives here from CAMS Enterprise LLC? Okay, please come forward. And while you do that, I'll have Ms. Holzer read in the case.
The next case is calendar number 25-085. This is at 4075 Rocky River Drive. CAMS Enterprises LLC owner proposes to expand a convenience store to include a new gas island / canopy, parenthetically a gas station, an EV charging station in a local retail business district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 6. I'm just going to point out that number 5 includes a lot consolidation, and for the record, I'll also read in number 6 since we did previously hear this case. The Board of Zoning Appeals heard and denied a similar appeal in 2023 in calendar number 23-045. Pursuant of Rule 13 of the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules and Regulation, this case may be considered a refiling, which must be dismissed unless the appellant can present evidence to justify the denial of the application of res judicata. This evidence should include substantially changed circumstances, substantial new relevant evidence that was not available at the hearing on the prior appeal, or that the application of res judicata would create manifest injustice. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll hand it back to you for the oath.
All right, thank you for that. I will go ahead and swear in all who are present for this matter. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is nothing but the truth and the whole truth? You'll raise your right hand, reply with I do, state your name, spell your name, and give your address. I'll start with you.
Cross line, 601 website had it.
All right, thank you for that. I'll go to you next.
Thank you, Jim Donchik, Larson Architects, 12815, Ohio.
All right. Okay, I'll have you spell your name, please. Oh, yes, turn the microphone on for me. Yep,
Do it again?
please.
Okay. Jim J.P. Potacek, Larson Architects, 12815 Detroit Avenue, Lakewood, Ohio,
Spell your name for me.
PTACEK.
All right, got it. I'll go to you next.
I do. Jihad Zayed, GIHAD ZAYED, 4075 Rocky River Drive, Cleveland, Ohio.
All right, thank you for that.
Tony Coyne, 1100 Lakeside Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio.
All right, and do you represent a particular person for the
I
record?
do. I represent CAMS Enterprises. And
Okay.
Mr. Potacek is the architect for the project.
Perfect, thank you for that. I'll come to you next.
Nate Lull, City Planning, 601 Lakeside Avenue. I do. It's spelled NATELULL.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, now, is there anyone else here to speak on behalf of, or in this matter? No? Okay, history of the property, please.
Madam Chair, do we have folks on the line?
Yeah, I do see a call-in user. Call-in user, are you here to speak for this matter?
No.
Okay, thank you. I also see Zayed. I can't quite see what that top name is. Assam Zayed?
It's my brother. He's just watching.
So he's not going to speak?
No.
Okay, all right, very good. So it sounds like we've gotten everybody. We'll go to history of the property, please.
Okay, thank you. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929. In 2009, it was changed to the current local retail and pedestrian retail overlay district. Our Records Administration Office, we found that in 1923, a permit was issued to erect a one-story garage. 1977, a permit was issued to erect a grocery store. 1978, a permit was issued to demolish a service station on the site. There are several variances on file. In 1965, a variance was refused to install 2 pump islands on the property. Later in 1965, a variance was issued to erect a pole sign. In calendar number 77-173 in 1977, this board denied a variance to erect a gas station and a food store. But then in calendar 88-197, this board granted a variance to convert from a store to a store and a gas station. And then in 1994, we see a permit was issued to erect a fence. And there were food licenses between 2006 and 2021. And then the more recent, the most pertinent information is that calendar number that was mentioned by Ms. Holzer. That was appealed to the Court of Common Pleas, and the Court of Common Pleas upheld the board's decision.
All right.
That's all that I have.
Legal, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, appellant must first overcome a res judicata issue. If that is overcome, appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the minimum distance, fencing, landscaping, and driveway requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
All right, thank you for that. I will now turn to the project team. The first inquiry here is regarding the res judicata.
Yes.
Would you like to speak first as it goes to
Yes,
that?
I would like to do that. Again, my name is Tony Coyne. I'm land use counsel to the applicant, and operational questions will be directed to Mr. Ziad at some point, and then JP Potacek's our lead architect on the entire site plan. So let's address the questions that was raised by your counsel as well. CAMS Enterprises, also going under the name of Speedy Gas, presented a similar proposal to this board in June of 2023. And keep in mind, he's developing 2 parcels. The one parcel that had what was known as the cone zone is still vacant and not used. And we have tried to get some economic activity on the site. It's been very, very difficult, as has much of Rock River Drive has been difficult for retail uses. This is an unusual request for refiling too, because it received a tie vote 2-2. So under Robert's rules, it means you can't proceed. It's technically not an approval or a disapproval, but under Robert's rules, you can't proceed on a tie vote. It was 2-2, so it was close. Back then, CAMS Corners also took a survey of people, some living pretty close to the site, some not so close, and 65 folks were in favor of it, 18 were opposed, and there were no opinion among 21 people. Mr. Ziad and CAMS Enterprises operates about 17 gas stations in Northeast Ohio, and he's a very well-regarded operator in that respect. The applicant is back having made changes to the site plan, given circumstances as well that have in some ways changed, but they're continuing to be problematic in terms of economic development for the property next door. And we'll talk about some of that. The history that I think Council Ms. Kukla referenced about the property going back to 1929. For much of the time, this has been a property that has sold gas, by the way, even when it was a garage at one time. So it's been in and out of use as a gas station for nearly 80 years. An area variance was granted in 1988 to continue it as a gas station. The gas stations were removed from the local retail zoning as a permitted use in 2009. The pumps and the tanks were removed, I think, in 2016. So that's kind of the history. There was an issue with one operator at one time, which I think created some concern with some people when we met 2 years ago. We had the architect look at the site plan again, and given the fact that there's been no economic activity on half of the parcel, it's been a concern. And Mr. Zad uses his other businesses to subsidize this operation, which is popular in the community. The changes to the site plan that I want to reference to the board specifically is that they've enhanced the landscaping plan. There's a proposal for an 8-foot board-on-board fence for additional buffer between the subject property and the residential. That would need a 2-foot variance because of the height. The second driveway on Rocky River Drive was removed. So there is one driveway approximately 30 feet, which is code compliant. He's also prepared to do the lot split. And the second structure, which is connected, has been reduced in size by 1,000 feet, has a little bit larger patio on the front, and that would likely be an ice cream operation, but that's a separate topic. So that was changed, reduced in size. They've also added bicycle racks to the property. And I might add, the gas station and the gas component is helpful to drive economic revenue for the operation. He's also adding EV chargers, and he's also talked in the past that he's flexible on using more EV chargers depending on circumstances and how things change. But the owner has unfortunately had to subsidize this location, and there is an economic hardship just for the operation there and the vacant property that is underutilized next door. I believe at a meeting that we had, and we had a meeting with Cam's Corners a week ago, and no one spoke opposed to the project, and it was a very favorably received meeting. And again, for nearly 5 years, other than I think the veterinary clinic, and the councilman probably could speak to this, there hasn't been a great deal of new retail development on Rocky River Drive, and it's a pretty busy street in the city of Cleveland. But the community likes the project. They patronize the project, both driving there and walking up there. And we think this improvement would be great for the community in the city of Cleveland. You'll re-energize the property next door, you'll create more jobs and create more tax revenue for the city. You know, it's a busy street. We recognize that. And the second business, which Joe can speak to, would benefit the community as well. So we believe that the changes are such that the res judicata would not apply. Given what we're doing with the site plan and making it more, I think, acceptable to the community. And again, the meetings we've had have been very positive. And again, you know, when you think of one of the provisions, it has to do with new or relevant evidence. In some ways, this is a little different because some of the new and relevant evidence is that there is still no use for half of this property, none. And that's a problem for the city. It's a problem for the community. And it's certainly a problem for my client. So we believe, given all of those circumstances taken collectively, there's no reason why you couldn't rehear this matter, given the conditions that we're presenting. And I would request that we proceed and have Mr. Potacek review the entire site plan with you.
Okay, so I want to make sure that we are clear in terms of what you are presenting to this board as a substantially changed circumstances. Or circumstances of new evidence that was not available at the prior hearing, or even evidence of manifest injustice. So is it your position that you've changed the site plan and those are
Yes.
your substantial changes that you're presenting today?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And in terms of the manifest injustice comment, that's what I was referencing at the end. The cone zone, which had its day, has been unused since we started to try to do this project. And we believe that the future of that property is really at stake. And he and Cam's Enterprises continue to subsidize the businesses there through his other operations. So it's not going to work out if we don't do something. And we think that his operations are well run. I know he took members of the community to look at a new store that he built in Middleburg Heights. And everyone recognized he's stepped up and does what he says he's going to do. And in this circumstance, we think it would be unjust to not give him another chance at a rehearing. Again, it was a 2-2 vote. It was a tie. And given the fact that a lot of people in the neighborhood are supportive of it, we thought it would be appropriate to come back, having made some of these changes that were suggested and what Mr. Potacek could walk through with you for reconsideration as a refiling.
Okay, understood. Any questions from the board as it relates to the application of res judicata?
I have no questions, Madam Chair. It sounds to me like, I'm not sure how many other board members were available that heard the case in 2023, but I remember this distinctly. And it sounds to me like there have been some significant changes based on what was discussed at that hearing.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Ms. Faith. Anything else from any other board members? All right, so I see you, Ms. Roca, chiming in. Go right ahead, please.
I was present as well, if I recall correctly, and I do see some significant changes here. So I would be comfortable with proceeding.
Okay, so I'm thinking it may be, just as a point of order, a good time for us to just take a vote on whether res judicata should apply or not. And then we can move forward with testimony in terms of approving the variance if that is approved. So I will entertain a motion as to whether this case should be dismissed or heard based on the application of res judicata.
Madam Chair, I move that we move forward based on res judicata being satisfied.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Board Member Roca, I second.
All right, can we call the vote?
Sure. Mr. Madison?
Yes.
Ms. Holzer?
Yes.
Ms. Roca?
Yes.
Ms. Faith?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes. All right, so we have a unanimous approval to move forward with your case and not apply res judicata. So now we're going to take it from the top and you can talk to us about the variances as if, you know, this is a new thing. So do you want to start or who wants to go first? Just state your name, whoever wants to go first for the court reporter.
You can't get us on in our nerves and our feelings, too many times.
And then push your way out. I'll give you a moment to woosah.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, JP.
Hi, Jim JP Potacek with Larson Architects. Again, when we were approached about the possibility of revisiting this plan, we basically went back, revisited how the plan was laid out in sort of in response to some of the feedback that was heard at the previous meeting for consideration. And in what is proposed right now, this was sort of the revised version of the submittal that went. Ms. Leonard, Director Leonard actually had reviewed this, and then as a matter of her review, flagged several things that in our proposed condition were still going to be variances, some of which were not identified previously because of the changes in the plan. So just to recap what those functionally are, basically in the original proposal from 2023, we did not have a sufficiently wide landscape condition in the back of this. Our goal was to try to meet the requirements of the general retail with the exception of the use of gas. So in the general retail, the requirement was an 8-foot buffer, a landscape fence to basically, and heavy screening, local retail to be on that condition. So basically the plan was revised so that we meet the heavy screening requirement to buffer this commercial use from the residential. The 8-foot fence that triggered the variance was sort of a consideration for the benefit of the neighbors. But being flagged, could we give up and make it a 6-foot fence? Absolutely. It was a concession that was done sort of as a way of making a compromise to the residents alongside this commercial use. The other item that was flagged in this case was that basically there are 2 drives within 100 feet that are sort of the pre-existing condition of having 2 separate parcels. But in response to that, and we can do this later, the revised submittal proposes to modify that condition so that we have 1 compliant drive, 30-foot maximum width, with the minimum turnouts of the 6-foot radius that were highlighted in the zoning review at this point. So that was another functional change. And again, we are also showing still the EV station. We are showing the 8 pump locations across the front. And although it was not tagged in the zoning review, in a conversation with Mr. Lowe, he pointed out that we are also missing the bike parking as codified in the zoning code. So if we could go ahead and flip ahead to a couple more slides, we have our proposed version. One more, I think. So this is the proposed demo plan. So this is essentially the proposed plan. We are still proposing to close off what was formerly an entrance egress condition off of Larchwood closest to the residential. We're maintaining the single access point off of Larchwood. And then along Rocky River Drive, we're consolidating under the assumption of a consolidated parcel. We're consolidating all of the drive conditions to a single drive at the south end of it. Again, regulation 30-foot with the radius turns at the bottom, which cues up a nice green space across the front. So we're extending that buffered condition along the front. We're expanding the landscape along the south condition, which also was correcting for a parking setback. We were within 25 feet of the front where the EV parking is. So we've also since corrected that as well as part of this, trying to obviate all variances. So our hope in setting this up was that this obviated all of the variances outlined in Director Leonard's comment response, with the exception of the use condition of the gas. The next one actually does show a color version of the plan as well. And that shows then basically the trees, shows the proximity to the residential as well, the landscaping, and then again, the expansion of the convenience store to go a little bit more storage on the backside, and then the proposed addition, which functionally absorbs the cone zone into new construction at this point. If I could go back as well to the existing conditions plan too, one of the other kind of challenges of leaving the cone zone as is if you see where the number 12 is at the very top right, where that drive access comes in off of Larchwood, basically that condition is driving in, and basically where number 1 is, sorry, I'm missing a pointer. I wish I had one. Where the cone zone is right now, that traffic is actually coming down, and the drive-up window is where number 8 is right now. So you have actually conflicting traffic movements on the site as well, which we consider to be more of a hazard. In the consolidated plan, we were trying to make it as a single use, easy to navigate, go in, go back around, and go back in the front of the building. So it basically organizes the traffic flow so that we're not creating conflicting traffic movements as well. So this is one of those, if we're going to make a change that makes a hardship, please don't. This simplified everything. It gave the cone zone more infrastructure, because in attempts to renovate that building, look at the budgets for it or whatever, it has no ADA bathrooms. Any renovation would be almost silly from an expense against the thing. So the only way that's going to really be correctable at this point is to consolidate it into the building at this point. And it gives a great opportunity to kind of revisit one facade unified that also is aesthetically more in keeping with what now has been constructed just adjacent to it with the new animal hospital. So if we can go ahead, I can show some of the renderings of the proposed condition. These were just some reference images for what we were, aspirationally trying to do. Interiors as well, clean, bright white. And then again, so this is sort of the revisited condition that was attempted to be a compliant zoning condition. You see that the drive on the far left has been closed off and returned to landscaping, single point access closer to Rocky River Drive, landscape strip all the way down that basically ties the final south end into one access point. We're removing the pole sign. We're putting up a monument sign, again, more in keeping with the zoning code. And as you see, the building itself, we don't have the reference photograph of the completed animal hospital, but the color palette is very similar at this point as well. And then next one. So again, you're seeing a consistency of the approach, the branded C-store at this point, and then the retail off to the right. EV charger at the far end, at the end of the pumps at that point. Again, the shot showing the EV charger, the new monument sign. You see a better shot of the new retail, potentially ice cream store. And then next. Again, bike racks in the front at the kind of anchoring the left-hand side of that, where you could easily pull off the residential side street and park your bike. Gas islands in the front. Again, commiserate treatment of the pump islands to the building architecture at this point. And again, that's a more prominent view of that tenant space as well. Tanks on an easy access, for trucks to pull in as well. I think that might be the last view, so. So that's functionally our intent at going forward at this point. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything further to add?
We can open up for questions. right
Okay,
now, or
I'll
if,
turn to
or
the
from
councilman
anybody
or the planner who would like to go first.
Morning, members of the board. My name is Nate Lull, the Far West City Planner for this area. It's city planning's opinion that the site plan is not substantially changed. I know you guys have already voted on that, but essentially what you're looking at today is, from our perspective, the same site plan with more landscaping, which is something that would have came as a result of design review and city planning approval anyways. So that's something they would have had to develop over time. The same number of pumps exists. The drive-through window located directly next to residential homes exists, where you would have, queuing cars essentially directly next to somebody's backyard. It's not an ideal condition for anybody to really live or enjoy their property. And so I think by granting these variances, you will unfortunately create an unfair condition to the neighboring property surrounding, where they will not be able to enjoy their property rights due to the traffic impacts, the queuing car impacts, impacts to Rocky River Drive in terms of pedestrian and bicycle traffic will be essentially worsened by a proposal like this. And I also think that this type of plan, reversing the decision of the courts and the decision of this board in 2023, would set a dangerous precedent where we continue to see gas stations be one of the most proposed uses in the city, and they commonly end up at this board. And so I think that granting the variances will be a dangerous precedent for future cases. There's also a lot of data that points to a rise in traffic, a rise in unsafe driving behaviors, a rise in physical violent crime when there are gas stations nearby. There's a lot of data that points this out, honestly. And so I believe that robberies are one of the most common crimes at these gas stations in general. I believe there's something like a 6% increase in crime when there is a gas station nearby. So for these reasons, we don't feel it's a good proposal. We appreciate the team here, doing their due diligence and trying to make this a better site plan, and we will work with them if you all decide to approve the variances. But as in 2023, we still do not support the variances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll go to you next.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'll start off, I think, by acknowledging that a struggle of mine, and this is not a subtle statement against the property owner, it's just sort of a generalized comment of trying to bring new development into the ward and get property owners who have, underutilized properties to consider developing them. So to that degree, I am thankful of the appellant's investment in the community and interest in investing further. I think, in speaking with residents, that the enthusiasm I hear is less about gas pumps and more about the opportunity for new retail development, and especially ice cream, which is a little beyond the ability that nothing this board could vote on could compel there to be ice cream in the future. But people do miss their soft serve, and that's fair to acknowledge. But I think it's important to differentiate between what is being proposed versus what's being proposed that requires a variance. So this board would not require an approval of the cone zone building. That would require a vote of the planning commission. I would support it. It is in shape. And this board would not require the extension of the building or the construction of a new building, maybe of consolidating parcels that would come in. There's two variances before us. One is for the height of the fence, which I think is less controversial, but really the crux of the question is the gas pump. And what I have heard, especially from residents who live most immediate, is they are not interested in living in proximity to a gas station. I submitted in 2023 letters outlining this further. I can resend them to the board if it pleases you, but essentially there's 20 gas stations west of West 130th. There's a feeling that there's an oversaturation of gas stations already. That number would actually now be 21 because one that was blighted, that was closed at the time, within, I would guess, 1,000 feet, has reopened on Rocky River Drive. Concerns about lighting, concerns about traffic, environmental concerns, which is why at the time the Office of Sustainability voiced their opposition. Nate had mentioned, issues. I don't think this is a case of any individual operator creating a climate where they want there to be crime, but people leave their keys in the car, and it becomes an opportunity for people to kind of bad actors to seek out opportunities to commit crime. So for all of those reasons, I continue to oppose the installation of the gas pumps. That being said, the rest of the plan, I think, is not, I also would like to see an ice cream store. I also would like to see landscaping. I also would like to see a more open, lighted convenience store. None of those things are requiring a zoning variance to occur. I hear that there's this economic hardship and alleged subsidy of this convenience store without information. That's essentially hearsay at this point. And I ask the Board of Zoning Appeals to really focus their attention on the gas pump component of this and whether or not there is an economic hardship to an existing business that requires the installation of gas pumps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I will give the project team an opportunity to respond. Who wants to speak?
I
Hold on one
do
second.
have a letter. if
You
you'd
have
like me to read it
correspondence?
now.
Okay,
Sure.
yes, let's hear that, please.
Yes, this is from Pat Lipage, Lipag. Good morning, Board of Zoning Appeals. My wife and Taryn and I live at the corner of Rocky River Drive and Larchwood, 4060 Rocky River Drive in West Park, directly across the street from the proposed gas station. Unfortunately, they cannot attend, but they strongly oppose Speedy's proposal. They opposed the identical proposal in 2023. Since they cannot attend, they're asking that the board consider their concerns. They have listed 4 here, so I'll read them. Number 1, they have crime concerns, environmental health concerns, and lack of market need, and traffic congestion as the 4 items that they're going to address in the email. So number 1, crime and shooting and robberies. Taryn and I moved to West Park in 2022 because the neighborhood's reputation for safety, but gas stations, even the nicest ones, are magnets for shootings and robberies. For instance, last August, Cleveland saw 3 gas station shootings in a single week, and they cite a news5cleveland.com article. Likewise, the FBI reports that roughly 9.8% of robberies in the Midwest occur at gas stations and or convenience stores. And then they also cite a website article. Speedy is no outlier. In recent months, the Speedies on Lorraine Road near West Park Rapid Station reported a robbery with a gun to Cleveland police. And in January 2024, a man robbed the Speedies on Lakewood Heights Boulevard of $2,500 worth of merchandise. And they cite a Cleveland19.com article. We cannot and will not grow our family across the street from a place that attracts so much crime, violence, and guns. Number 2, environment and health. Our second concern is the environmental and health repercussions. Gas stations can experience gas leaks. As one example, in February 2022, Speedy gas station located at Brook Park Road experienced a gas leak which required a response from Parma Fire Department and the EPA. And they cite a Cleveland19.com article from 2022. As a result, nearby residents had to take several precautions to protect themselves and their families. Additionally, gas stations emit several dangerous compounds like benzene that are harmful to human health. Benzene exposure includes increased risk of cancer, anemia, and other things. To that end, the EPA's school siting guidelines recommend precautionary screenings for locating new schools within 1,000 feet of a gas station due to pollution and contamination hazards. For our future kids and the daycare currently across the street, the distance will be roughly 100 to 150 feet. Number 3, lack of market need. Third, the neighborhood does not need another gas station. We currently have 3 gas stations on Rocky River within 0.8 miles of Speedy's proposed location. Them being Arco at 4142 Rocky River Drive at 0.2 miles, Shell at Rocky River Drive, Lorraine Avenue at 0.5 miles, and Marathon at 4480 Rocky River Drive at 0.8 miles. Speedy knew this when they purchased the property. A corporation's supposed need for profitability should not supersede nearby residents' need for safety, livability, and walkability. Number 4, traffic less walkable and bikeable. Finally, adding another gas station will only increase vehicular congestion and make Rocky River Drive even less walkable and bikeable. It is the antithesis of Mayor Bibb's Cleveland Moves campaign. Cleveland Moves is a 5-year plan that seeks to make neighborhoods safer, more comfortable, and more convenient to walk, bike, and take transit. And he cites a clevelandohio.gov article. As many West Parkers know, this intersection is already difficult and dangerous to cross, but adding a gas station where the primary purpose is to attract more cars to refuel will only worsen traffic, and it will make the neighborhood less safe and less comfortable to walk, run, bike, and take transit. Thank you for considering our concerns. Sincerely, Pat and Taryn Lipage at 4060 Rocky River Drive. Thank you.
All right. Does
That's
that
all that we have.
conclude our, okay, sounds good. All right, so I was going to give you an opportunity to respond to. What we
Yes,
just
I'd like to respond to a couple of things too. And first of all, to the hearsay issues of letters like that and your planner's comments. I mean, the crime situation is not fair to the applicant. First of all, the FBI ranks C-stores as having more activity of crime or robberies than a C-store and a gas station. And both of them get reduced with vacant buildings like the Cone Zone next door, or undevelopable properties next door have even more problems. So I think that's the balancing test that should be given consideration. We also asked to look at the crime data for this site. There hasn't been any problems with this site having any issues because it's well lit, it's well run, and I think it causes a deterrent by being well run, well lit, well maintained, and well managed. So I don't think that's fair, and to have the planner make those comments generally, I don't think is fair at all. The fact of the matter is you could look at other uses that also attract crime, and I don't think it's necessarily fair to look at a school use that has problems compared to any other use. That has to be dealt with by the community and by the property owner, and I think he's demonstrated that he can do that. So I don't think those are fair comparisons. The other mention to this leak in I believe in Parma has nothing to do with his operations. It wasn't his responsibility. It affected his property, but it wasn't his responsibility. So I think that's unfair to bring that up again. But what I can tell you is that the meeting we had was well received. I respect the councilman a lot, but I have to say, it's not like we could say, okay, we'll do all this other stuff and not put in the EV charger and not put in the gas pumps. It won't work. It won't economically work. So it will be a problem going forward if we don't get to include everything that we've presented. It's expensive. It's a $2 million plus project. It'll create jobs. It will eradicate what's otherwise an obsolete building, as Mr. Potacek described. And I think, yes, Mr. Ziad had just mentioned too, operationally, there's not like a McDonald's or a Starbucks or a Chick-fil-A menu board window. It's not that kind of an operation. And I think that should be explained. We did explain that to the community because that was asked. And so I think maybe you can explain how you're doing, or JP, either way.
Yeah, if I can, directly south of this is basically where the parking for the animal hospital is. So there's really no residential to the south of this. And then what you're seeing basically is if the ice cream store were to have a pickup window, all that traffic is actually closer, and facing towards Detroit. So basically there's no queuing that happens behind the building for what is the primary use on the south side of the building, with that being potentially a pickup window at this point, with an order happening in front of the building at the kind of the lower southwest corner of the building at this point. So that is the primary condition that we're describing as a pickup window, drive-through amenity for that use. The other window that you're seeing on the far north side is functionally sort of a pickup window as a convenience. We shared this at the meeting that some of his other stores have this as sort of again, a convenience thing. You're a new mom and you have to pick up milk or, Pampers or something like that. You can call ahead, use his app and show up at that door, that little window, and have that passed into your car versus unbuckling the kid and bringing him in. Or if you're a senior and have mobility issues, this is sort of a convenience item, way of basically just serving the customer at that point. So the notion that there would be a queue, in fact, what we were saying from his uses at other stores, there may only be 2 cars. And that's where we're only actually showing 2 of them. The zoning requirement is a 5-car stack. So we're showing in this case that the 3 dotted cars that wrap around the back of the building are functionally possible to accommodate and still allow traffic to go by those cars. But in actual expectation, that isn't likely going to be. That's not a pickup window where, you could just get food from, nonstop. That's not the intention of that window. It's not a McDonald's. It's not a Starbucks at this point. It's really just based around a convenience use of that window. And again, that's a proprietary app you guys have set up on their own. Again, they own several stores and several of them have this feature, but it is really just driven around. And functionally, it's an outgrowth of the pandemic where people did not want to come if they were immunocompromised. They could do this and then still access the store without having to physically come into the store at that point. So just as an explainer for what those 2 pieces were. So.
Okay, just a couple of questions to the project team. So your legal standard is that you have to show that if you're denied this variance, there will be an unnecessary hardship that's particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance. So, it seems like the property is in use right now without the variance, and you can speak to whether it's economically feasible or not, but can you talk the board through what the unnecessary hardship would be?
Yes, let me first start and I'll let Cam's Enterprise explain. Half the property is not economically viable or being used. Half of it is not. And since I've been working with Joe, we've had calls on people potentially to use it or buy it or rent it. None of them have panned out. None. And it's been like that for a long period of time. So half of the property is not economically feasible. And in my view, the unnecessary hardship is what are you going to do with it? Even if you look at the old configuration, could you show the site plan with the cone zone being located there? Yeah, so it's, I don't know if I should stand up or not, maybe. Do you mind if I approach
Please,
that?
go right ahead.
Because, this is not ideal, how this is set up. They did have a drive-through window, and then access all the way to Larchwood here, this separate business. They had one there for this business. And the property's not really usable in that perspective, because there's reverse traffic issues. We're trying to find a pick up here at the window that was there or out. So it wasn't a safe condition when it was operational. The building's location up against the dental clinic, it's just not going to be easy to redevelop. So it's going to stay like that. And we tried to talk to people about doing something, and there's been no demand or interest. So it's really not. It's not a piece of property that the client wants to maintain, but we've got to do something. And I think that what we're proposing by adding some retail space, since there's little or no retail interest on Rocky River Drive over the last 5 years, not just 2 years, we think this is an advantageous way to do it. The EV charger is also a major addition. So we're trying to present this so that it's going to be economically viable going forward. And I'll let the client explain, but he's subsidizing the current use with his other businesses. So the reality is he's trying to keep a go of it because people like the business there. When we had our community meeting, people talked about, by the way, not driving there, walking there. So do you want to comment on how you're subsidizing it?
First off, no matter which way this goes, I really want to thank the board for giving us the chance to revisit this with the changes that we've made. I appreciate that. I want to talk about a few things with this project. This project is very near and dear to my heart. I was a West Park resident for 9 years, just recently moving. I want to see the development happen. We've been friendly neighbors with the community since we've been here since 2022. The animal hospital, that was the biggest investment on that part of town. He actually, till this day, we have let him, all of his employees use our parking lot at the Cone Zone until this day because they don't have enough parking even after their job was completed. And they all patronize us at the store. But convenience stores in 2025 aren't the same as they were as the Lawson stores that you remember before my time. From what I heard, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, you just don't generate enough traffic. Okay, for right now, this store with our payment, our mortgage, and stuff like that is barely breaking even. When you account for the lot next door, our property taxes are like $8,000 a year. Insurance on the building is very high because it's vacant, and most insurance companies now in this climate, they don't want to take on vacant buildings because of the vandalism, if it catches fire and things of that nature. And we've been in there multiple times to try to revamp it after, this process got shut down. And every time we go in there, we're like, what are we doing? Are we going to put a couple $100,000 in this building? Or are we going to ask a tenant to put it? It just shuts down. The building kind of needs to go. And yes, we love the development. We'll be probably one of the only, I don't want to say the first, the only sit down style. Like we wanted to do ice cream in the restaurant, not inside the gas station, but over there where people can sit down, come in with their bikes, come and walk their dogs, tie their dogs over there and sit down and be able to eat in the neighborhood and enjoy their ice cream. So it's a different style project, and comparing it to the other gas stations in the neighborhood, it's different because the other ones are a little smaller side. They're kind of get your gas. Sometimes the coolers are broken, some working, not working. This is going to be a full-on convenience store with food, fresh food options that you can get with a multitude of selection that competes with all the big names out there on your Get-Go's, your Sheets and stuff like that. It would be like that, but a little bit more catered toward fast casual rather than fast food. So think, instead of McDonald's, think Chipotle, think of healthier options, think salads and whatnot. And as far as crime goes, crime can happen anywhere. If you just Google Crocker Park in Westlake, Ohio, one of the top suburbs in the state, and you'll see that there's probably been more robberies or theft that happened there than any singular particular gas station location. So to single out, what happened on, I think they said Lakewood Heights Boulevard, somebody came in there and took a couple $1,000s worth of product one time in 10 years. Didn't affect any residents. The only person that lost out on that was me and my company. It happens. Sunglass Hut in Crocker Park, look how many times they've been robbed. Now, are we going to say no more sunglass stores? They attract robberies. They probably attract more robberies than gas stations. And what's the data on the other gas stations on that corridor within half a mile of their police records? What's my police record on this property? We do what we're supposed to do. We don't let any loiterers stand outside. We don't let anyone, if we see loud music or something, we tell them to turn it down. We keep a safe environment, a safe, nice, bright, clean store. And as far as lighting goes with the project, back in 2023, before we sat down with councilmen and the neighborhood development group at the time, we had some very bright lights. The bright lights were to deter crime. They asked us to turn them off or put something. We turned them off. We haven't put them on since. We had lights around the window. They asked us at that time with the inclination that we were going to move forward with this project to turn them off. And we did. We kept them off. That's probably one of my darkest looking stores. And it kind of at night, people are like, why do you have it? I'm like, this is what the neighbors asked for. We're trying to comply with the neighbors. Okay. We're not trying to come into the neighborhood and change anything and make anything crazy. The gas pumps are not going to set this, neighborhood on fire and bring all this crime and attract all this crime. We don't have that anywhere else. Why would we have that there besides some outliers? And like I said, crime can happen anywhere. I don't believe the notion that crime, once we put a gas station, is just going to be this big crime magnet, especially at our location. If you have 17 operating businesses, stuff is gonna, just by the law of, like, I wouldn't say physics, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but just the probabilities, law of probabilities, something might happen, just like it would happen in Crocker Park or in Beechwood or in other areas that you would feel safe in. But we're gonna do to the best of our abilities, any client that comes into our store, just like we do everywhere else, we're going to take care of them and make sure they are safe. We've never had a robbery, never had a shooting. We've never had anything like that happen in any of our locations. Thank God. And we have been doing in this, we're not new to this. One thing that I will say with me is, and my team, is we are going to do what we say we're going to do. And we brought the Cam's Corner guys, Joe and Dave David Robinson. We brought them to our Middleburg Heights location that, the city welcomed us with open arms. We're building in Parma Heights, they're welcomed us with open arms. We're building in Eastlake, open arms. City of Cleveland, even though I have 3 projects going on in the city of Cleveland, sometimes we'll get some pushback instead of, hey, they need to recognize that I'm a good operator. My team is a great we run a great operation, and gas stations are necessity businesses, okay? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They are a necessity business. So I want to keep going on and on. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions for me, I'm willing to answer it and be here to answer anything.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, yes, I have a question that I'd like to pose to the appellant. If they could answer, when the appellant purchased this property, was the appellant aware, did they have knowledge that gas pumps were not permissible per the zoning?
Okay, we'll go back to this part of it, and I appreciate that question. The 2 parcels were purchased separately, okay? One was purchased in 2022, which is the convenience store that is right now. And the old owner of that building was the owner of the gas station that was there. He owned it since from the 70s, okay? He was the landlord. He sold it to me on the basis with a site plan of there being, he was moving forward with a gas station, okay? Now, I took that and moved forward, and then I started working on the Cone Zone deal, was working simultaneously. When I met with, at the time, it was somebody at the community development, what was his name? Councilman, what was the
woman was Rose.
No, before it was Ben Campbell.
Ben Campbell.
Yes, when I met with Ben Campbell, this was about January of 2023, after I had already purchased, the property because it was quick. The guy was 80 years old. He said, I want to get out of here. I want to go to Florida. Boom, boom, boom. He showed me site plans, and I was working on Cone Zone. Ben's like, wait, hold on, slow down a second. I'm like, I already bought it. He's like, well, let's have some meetings. We set up some meetings. We'd go back and forth with councilmen, and at the time, the president of the Camps Corner Development Group was Rosemary Mudry. And, we would make suggestions and stuff like that without the inclination of like, we'd come here and there would be no gas pumps. It was kind of like, yes, if you do this, you do that. There was even a suggestion of making them all EV chargers. And I'm like, listen, we're going to set them up to, in the future, if that flips, like when I say all EV chargers underneath the canopy, my plan is to put wire conduits. So like in 10 years, 15 years, the market shifts. People are like, oh, we have gas tanks and their gas is obsolete. We'll just take those pumps out and put electric chargers, no harm, no foul. We'll already be ahead of the game. So that I hope that answers your question on if we knew or didn't know about the zoning back then when we purchased it.
And some, you did know that the zoning did not permit this, is what I've heard.
No, when I bought it, no, I did not. I bought it under the assumption, when I bought the convenience store, I did not know that the zoning did not permit it.
Okay.
Sort of a question to that end. We've heard testimony that a gas station is not in keeping with the purpose and the intent of the zoning code. We've also heard testimony that the same request was refused 3 times before now. So I would love to hear your testimony regarding whether you truly believe that a gas station is in keeping with the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
I don't, just to, Madam Chair, I don't recall there being a third time that it was not approved. There was a variance.
So there was a variance request in 1965 that was
Right.
refused to install 2 pumps.
Right. but
There was
they-
a 1977 variance request that was denied to erect a gas station. And then there was the one that was recently appealed, which
Yes.
is also to erect a
But
gas
but I
station.
believe there were already pumps there at the time. They were expanding it and changing it, and that's what was not approved. But we did research. There's been a gas station on that property on and off for 80 years, and the pumps, the tanks were not removed until 2016. So I think it was a matter of changing it. I think it might have been a Sohio at one time. Sohio was doing different things with having convenience stores. They took their old 2 bays and they converted them to convenience stores. And there were problems with doing that and still selling gas. In terms of, those denials, it was to do other things to the property. And the one that, the variance that was approved was for area variances because of the existing site plan. So it was really just this last one that this occurred. Now, I think he answered the question very truthfully to Ms. Roca. Was there a sense that he'd have to get a variance at some point? I think that was probably presented to him later on after he acquired everything. So I come back to this part of this request respectfully to the board, and I know you have a lot on your plate. This is a practical request to some degree. There's been a lack of retail investment on Rocky River Drive, and that's been a hope of CAMS to improve that. That's a fact. I didn't bring the crime data. CAMS did pull it up. There is no crime
direct you
data.
back to my question.
Okay,
So the
and-
question is regarding whether a gas station is in keeping with the purpose and intent of the zoning code in this.
In this location, I do think it is, and in part because it helps to make the business successful. It's one other element that will make the retail component successful. So I don't see it having any detrimental impact, given the fact that there has been a gas operator there for most of the existence of this platted parcel. And if I get back to the practical side of your question as well, Rocky River Drive is going to be an interesting future for Rocky River Drive, in my judgment. What we're doing to the airport is a significant investment. Rocky River Drive is the main way that people get to Hopkins Airport from the west side of Cleveland and much of the western suburbs of Cuyahoga County. It just is. It came up at the community meeting. I didn't even think of it originally. What's going to happen with the Brown Stadium? I'm not a fan of Brook Park, but I'm just saying, if that train leaves, this is going to be the other avenue to get to that facility from all of the west side of Cuyahoga County. So when the planner talks about walkability and bikeability, I'm optimistic about that, but this is just another challenge. And to look at this one property owner is trying to invest a lot of money on this parcel, it just seems to me there's no economic justification not to allow it. I think there's an economic hardship, and I don't think you're going to see any detrimental impact on the adjacent neighbors. I really don't. The meetings that we had previously suggested that. So I think it's consistent because it's already been there. And we think it's important if it's going to be successful. And you want to have people reinvest in the city. And I think his receptiveness to the EV chargers is really important. It came up at the meeting. There's so few EV chargers in our city. I drive an electric car now as well. There just aren't a lot of them. And he's taking the time to do it because it's not inexpensive to install it initially. But I think this is something that we've got to give consideration to if we want the city to be able to go forward.
All right, other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, yes, I have a follow-up question to your question. With respect to the character of the neighborhood, what is the prevalence of other gas stations and drive-throughs similar to this on this street and in this neighborhood? And this question is posed to either the appellant or the city, whoever would like to answer this. Or who could best answer it.
Just
I would
what
love a
type
little
of
bit of
what
both,
type of
yes.
gas stations are in?
Can you reiterate your
Oh.
question, Ms. Roca?
What is the prevalence of gas stations and drive-throughs in the neighborhood?
gas, right? It's small. Even
To the board member's question, this is Nate Law. There are 3 gas stations I'm thinking of in the general vicinity. They're smaller gas stations, as the applicant said. They're typically just places where you would get gas and leave. Drive-throughs along Rocky River Drive, there's not many, if any, at this point. I think that's a condition more commonly found along Lorraine Avenue. Rocky River Drive was sort of in its original, historic sense, developed around the streetcar era, sort of, or the end of the streetcar era. So there are some auto-oriented businesses. There are some more walkable, mixed-use businesses. It's really just there are some residential parcels as well. So it's a really wide array of land uses in the area. But to your original question, there's, I think, 3 gas stations in the proximity of Rocky River Drive and no drive-throughs.
Thank you for that.
All right, other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I do have a question. So based off of the testimony that we've heard, we've heard a lot to justify enhancements to the retail, ease of access to the retail, the driveway or the drive-through in order to create better access to the retail. I've heard less around the need for the gas pumps specifically. And so is your position that this project cannot move forward unless there are gas pumps?
Yes.
All right, other questions from the board?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just, my question is around I think I heard that the 2016, is that when the pumps were removed from that location?
Approximately around that time, yes.
And so during the use of the gas station at that time, can someone who has history of the neighborhood or location, can you speak to the, I guess, perception or observations of the business and operation as a gas station?
Well, obviously after that point in time, it was no longer used as a gas station. I think there were problems with the operator at the time as well. And so consequently, it became kind of a not well-run C-store for a period of time.
And I have a answer too. Let's remember, when I bought this property, it was shut down. Both of them were shut down. So when you go to the subsidy of the business, I'm a strong operator in this city and the county. We span 4 counties, from Summit, Lake, and Lorain County, plus Cuyahoga. So when businesses usually don't close if there was a successful business in that, in the area. And as far as drive-throughs, let's remember the Cone Zone that was closed down was also a drive-through. It was a weird drive-through, like the way it's coming, it didn't really make too much sense, but it was also a drive-through. So the business without the gas, that's why one of the reasons why I shut down. There wasn't enough business there. With our name recognition in the area, and we have had a lot of enthusiasm for the gas station. We had a meeting last week with in Cam's Corner Development. There's a lot of excited people there for the gas pumps. We had surveys. There's people excited for the gas pumps. And just going back on crime, because that just kind of gets on my nerves about the crime. There's a pizza place on that street that literally got broken into 3 times, maybe within a week. I think Brothers Pizza, you can look it up on the news. Are we not going to allow pizza places to go in anymore? Crime can happen anywhere. You know what I mean? I don't want to be stigmatized by crime because of the nature of business that I'm in. It makes me, especially we spend so much time, money, and energy on security and reinvestment in our places to make them clean and feel safe. You know, the best thing that I hear by my customers or people, we put places where women feel safe to come in and children feel safe to come in. That's like the best feeling that I can get when we put up a gas station. Thank you, guys.
All right, other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, just going back to the site plan and remembering some things that we discussed when this case was previously before us, we had extended conversation about the escape lane behind the building. We had conversation about reducing the number of gas pumps and increasing the number of EV chargers. We had talked about the back perimeter, and since that directly abuts residential. My other concern is with the lighting and the signing, and how it might directly shine into the neighbors across the street. The speedy stations tend to have a high degree of lighting, as the appellant mentioned, bright lights around the windows, other lights like that. That's consistent with most of the locations and I think other businesses that he operates. And so my concern would be how that might be mitigated to give some relief to the residential neighbors.
I'll start. Yes, Miss Faith. The windows, like I said, that's more of a neighborhood preference. Some areas where there's more retail corridors, they don't mind it. But we removed the windows lights over here. We removed the bright lights. And as far as canopy, the lights, there's lights that we get that just shine straight down so the light doesn't fall out of the canopy space. And also there's a big the pylon signs on the corner that we have chose to remove that sign, and put a monument sign that won't be as bright and keep it lighter for the neighborhood. And we're not going to be 24 hours that we already decided will be shut down at 12, like we're doing right now. So, and we can work with, as far as lighting, to get the right photometrics that are needed for the neighborhood and to keep everyone happy. We're trying to make everyone happy, but also we're trying to get everyone happy to keep the gas pumps.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, in the appellant's comments, we could not hear what time he said he was going to shut down. When will retail sales from the drive-through lanes conclude?
The drive-through lane can be discussed. Like I said, it's more of a mobile pickup, low-use mobile pickup window that's just there as a convenience for people. We're not going to stay 24 hours at this location, probably about around midnight. And then if the mobile pickup had to close earlier, that's fine too. We don't need to keep it open all night. It would be easier for us for staffing purposes to close it at 8, 9 o'clock, instead of keeping it open all night.
And if I can, in regards to the escape lane around the building, basically in the trade-off of trying to make sure that we had a compliant 8-foot buffer condition, we still have 18'6" kind of for that escape lane. And again, from a pedestrian-friendly perspective, we are closing off that rear drive off to Larchwood. And with the consolidation, we're creating a less there's less permeability to the site at that point, which should improve walkability and access as well. So,
and just by the way, the existing use right now, the lane, there's cars going back and forth back there because there's an apron to get onto that side street. We're actually eliminating that and putting a huge landscape buffer that isn't there right now. So it's actually way better for the neighborhood with this plan than how it was from before and how it is in existing use right now.
And Ms. Roca, to your question too, if the board would want to limit the time that the drive-through would be open, to close it earlier, the applicant would agree to that.
Yes.
To that point, Ms. Leonard and Madam Chair, I'm not sure if you are aware, Ms. Leonard added two code sections to the chat that the code actually limits the time frame specifically for the drive-through retail sales from retail sales from a drive-through lanes of a drive-through establishment abutting a residential use shall be prohibited from 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. daily.
Okay. That we comply with that, and just I'll tell you this: my main thing is getting the gas pumps. If the drive-through is an issue, we can scratch the drive-through. Even though honestly, it's a convenience for elders and women with children in the car. That's who really use the drive-through.
All right, other questions from the board? Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry, this is Nate. If I could ask a question to the applicant.
You can.
Thank you. Is there any plan for within the retail sales portion of the store to sell like smoking products like Delta 8 or CBD, tobacco, stuff like that? And what percentage? Do you know approximately what percentage of sales that would be on?
On the floor?
Yeah, basically like what percentage roughly of floor space would those products take up in your establishment?
Less than 10%.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just wondering if I could make some additional comments, if it would be okay with you.
Your name for the
Oh, yeah,
record.
this is Councilman Slife. Again, kind of speaking at the larger macro neighborhood level, West Park began developing to the mass use of the car, but its growth really took off afterwards. And I think one of the things, and just if you're not hyper familiar with the neighborhood like I am, there's a perception, I think it's fair to say in the neighborhood that the area north of Lorraine along Rocky River Drive is a beautiful tree-lined street, and south of Lorraine, people feel that it's just a highway to the airport, it's power lines, it's forgotten that it was built for the car. It was built to move people through the neighborhood quickly and people's speed, and just the anecdotally, the number of people you'll see kids riding a bike or walking a dog is like night and day, whether you're north of Lorraine Avenue or south of Lorraine Avenue. And to that end, the decisions were made prior to me coming into this role that zoning was part of the answer on how we can take streets like not Rocky River Drive, Lorraine, and start to evolve them away from these dominant uses. Respectfully, my recollection's a little different. I believe the property transferred in 2022 and the conversations began with the development corporation prior to it about the limitations of this property and gas pumps. But in any case, I understand, and I have this conversation with various property owners, that the zoning has changed to guide us towards a more beneficial future for the neighborhood. And that isn't always an easy answer, but since 2016, nearly a decade after the gas pumps were removed, we've had people move into the neighborhood based off of that information, based off of plans from the Development Corporation and advocacy from me about how we can begin to maybe pare back Rocky River Drive and make it a more pleasant experience. And to me, that in order to actuate that requires a lot of little decisions, and this is one of those little decisions, which is why I'm respectfully ask you to deny the request for the gas pumps. And I offer myself and the Development Corporation the Middle Neighborhoods Program and Planning Commission, so I would support the demolition of the cone zone to explore other avenues for economic development on this that could be mutually beneficial.
All right. Any other questions from the board? All right. Oh, Ms. Faith, I can see you came off of mute. Do you have a question?
Right. I just want to review the hours of operation for the convenience store as it stands now and what the proposed gas station hours of operation would be regardless of the drive-through. And I believe the architect noted that escape lane is 18.6. So that is a wide one lane, which doesn't really allow for an escape lane in addition to the drive-through lane. And I didn't hear an answer to my question about the feasibility of reducing the number of pumps and increasing the number of EV chargers.
Who wants to take that?
I think you're gonna take some of that. I think the drive-through still does work that way, but.
I'm sorry. What was the first?
Yeah, let's take
the
them one
fir-
at a time. Ms. Faith, can
Sorry.
you ask us your first question again?
Sure. Let's start with the overall hours of the convenience store as it operates now and the proposed
hours.
as a gas station.
Yeah, the hours are 6 a.m. to midnight, and they would be the same hours as a gas station.
All right, that's the first one. What's the next question, Ms. Faith?
Except for the drive-through, if
You can go to the drive-through next.
the drive-through, if approved, would be within the limited hours or by the zoning code, by the code, 9:30, what is it, 10 to 9:30 or 9:30 p.m.?
9:30, yeah. But that lane is six, as if I'm remembering correctly, the architect stated that was 18.6, which really is just one wide one lane and doesn't really allow for an escape lane. Is that correct?
Ms. Faith, the drive-through lane at 18-6 is unencumbered by traffic for the most part, with the assumption that the 3 cars that you're seeing that would block that aren't likely to be there. They're shown to be compliant with the zoning at that point.
Yeah, I understand that doesn't really answer my question though. At 18.6, you're saying it's unencumbered. You're saying that that's the contingency for 3 cars to be there. But if there are 3 cars there and another car wants to bypass, they're going to be stuck behind another car because there really isn't enough width for them to pass. Is that correct, sir?
Hypothetically, if a car takes up 8 foot, then there's 10 foot of bypass space beyond it. And if a car takes up 8 feet off of the back of the curb and of 18.6, then there's still 10 foot 6.
Yeah, I think you're being generous with your ability for someone to pass. And also, you did not respond. You did not respond to the questions about reducing the number of gas pumps. There are no tanks there, so you'd have to put tanks in. And so you didn't discuss the reduction of the gas pumps or the increase of the EV stations.
As discussed earlier, the gas pumps, we're putting in this investment, either way, the one extra gas pump doesn't cost them, it doesn't make it or break it with the deal. But as of right now, with how many EV chargers are in the neighborhood versus how many gas customers, it would be nice to keep these gas pumps with the intention of we're prepping them off to be able to switch to EV. So let's just say right now it's still maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago, it was like 95% gas, 5% electric. Right now it's probably 90% gas, 10% electric. So once we get to a certain point where our electric chargers are too busy and they can't handle and our gas slows down, we could remove a gas pump and put an EV charger in its place. But 2 years, we go back 2 years from now, EV is still not dominant as we thought it would be. And so when I go back with 2 years ago till now, we are probably, I don't know what else is going on now on the main street, but on Rocky River Drive, we're one of the only proposed developments that I know of that I see. I don't see too much construction. I didn't see any construction, besides the light work. But
to Ms. Faith, if I could just comment one other point, and to the councilman to some degree, this is a sort of a proposition that if the gas pumps don't get put in, none of this is going to happen. I mean, none of this. He'll just continue to run it, maybe sell it. I don't know, but that's the problem. As it relates to the drive-through, though, and talking to my client here, if you're concerned about that pass-through and you don't think that would be that workable in your opinion, I mean, we think it would, but he would be willing to withdraw the drive-through if that would be something that the board would want us to do. But we think it's a great convenience for the reasons that he stated.
Well, I can appreciate the fact that it would be a convenience, but I can also foresee the situation where we would have people stacked up and people weighing on their horns and things like that. So, and so it sounds to me, Mr. Coyne, that again, to Ms. Pulser's previous question, without the gas pumps, this is a no-go for you.
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Wilson.
That concludes my question.
I just want to, Ms. Faith, to that point, I think we just heard Mr. Coyne say that it's not a no-go. You would just revert back to its original use, which is what it's being used as right now, is a convenience store. So there are other economically feasible uses without the gas pumps.
So let me, Ms. Roca, let me just clarify that. And I want to be very specific. First of all, it's not to its original use. For most of the years that this has been a platted parcel, there's been some type of gas operation or auto repair facility there. That's what's been there for most of the history. Oh, I'm sure it was legally, going back to how things were enforced on, I don't know, but that's what was there. So Ohio had it at one time. That's number one. But the second point is, you keep forgetting the cone zone. That's half the property. It's been vacant for how many years now, Joe?
I bought it 3 years ago, I think, yeah.
It's got to be more than 3 because when you got it.
When I bought it, it was closed. He would open, I think, in the season.
Okay.
I think. I'm not
But I
sure.
mean, that has been, that is a major problem. That's a major problem. And, when I come back to the two issues that I get frustrated with, it's the walkability and bikeability is great. And then we're looking at expanding the airport and potentially this Browns facility. I'm all for the Cleveland Moves concept. I really am. But it's difficult to look at that. And there's no retail reinvestment on Rocky River Drive. And I don't disagree with the councilman at all. When you compare the north side of Rocky River Drive and the south side, it is different. And part of it is because the evolution of the automobile impacting that part of our city and our community. We can't just throw it out though. And we want to see reinvestment, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can be. But I don't like to see the perfect be the enemy of the good. And in this situation, he's looking at trying to make this a really good project. And I think it's come a long way just from the lack of criticism of this coming back from the community. I mean, that one letter that was read in 3 years ago as well. And some of it's factually inaccurate, but I can't sit there and pinpoint each comment. But I recognize the difficulty.
All right,
Oh,
Councilman, additional
Madam
comments?
Chair,
Hold
just
on.
one, to Mr. Coyne's point about the lack of criticism. If we do look at the transcript and record of that previous hearing, there was significant opposition from the CDC and neighbors.
Right.
So I don't know that we can say that there was no opposition,
But-
and it
Hold
could
on,
be.
you
that-
can't interrupt her.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ms. Roca, go right ahead.
Mr. Coyne can proceed.
Yeah, just, I think you're right from the last proceeding, in the last meeting, there was more opposition, there were more people in favor of it, but I don't think that's the way it is today. And I don't think CAMS has a real problem with this proceeding the way we're presenting it, I don't think. And again, we bring the crime data in here, there hasn't been crime in this part of CAMS and this specific location. So I think it's unfair to suggest that is a problem, and I think that we've had extensive meetings, and we believe that the time is to turn it around. I mean, the proof that the cone zone property is economically unviable, which is one of your standards, is what's happened in 2 years. No one wants to sit on property and pay $8,000 or $10,000 a year in taxes and insurance, et cetera, when you can't use it. And that's what's happened. And I think that's a reason we wanted to come back and look at it again. We had our architect trying to revisit many components of the site plan to make it better. And I think we've done that. I think you at least recognize that it's better. But these other issues are issues we want to work with you on, work with the city on, and we'd like to proceed.
All right, I'm going to go to Councilman for the final word.
Thank you. I don't think it's debatable whether or not gas pumps would make the property more economically beneficial. That's sort of a foregone conclusion to me. I think the question is if the hardship is to the extent that gas pumps are the only way that the property could become economically feasible. And I will say and held this back, but triggered a nerve. The appellant owns the cone zone. The cone zone is the appellant's obligation, but the way that this has been presented to me, at least, is but for this variance, the cone zone will stay. And but for the variance, the convenience store does not look like that picture inside right now of open. It looks like more of a classic convenience store. Like those decision points are separate from the gas pumps, but to hold an improvement over the neighborhood's head in order to achieve gas pumps is frustrating to me. Those things can happen independently. And I remain unconvinced that the only path forward is gas. I remain open to the appellant to discuss other ways that the city can assist in subsidizing new investment if necessary, or supporting the demolition of property, or all these things. But to me, to more or less imply that there's a degree of blight on their property and that the blight will remain if this variance isn't approved doesn't bring me to the table faster. Thank you.
Okay.
Ma'am Wilson, I'm not going to respond to his comments respectfully. Would we be able at this point to request having it tabled, given some of the comments that have come back.
Sat here for an hour and a half listening to testimony.
Well, it's a lot's on the line, and there were suggestions about the drive-through being too narrow. There were suggestions about the hours of operation. We'd be willing to revisit that if the board thinks that would be worth doing. And obviously, it would be a briefer meeting, but maybe we can meet with the councilman on some of those issues. I know we have a disagreement on the gas pumps in general, but the other things, maybe we could
Yeah,
reach
I
some
think the
common ground on.
biggest
This is a
issue-
big investment for my client, and it's, again, I mean this, if you go down Rock River Drive, there's just not retail investment. There's just not there.
So I think
And
the
they're
biggest
empty
issue
buildings.
is the gas pumps.
Mhm.
It's not really the other tangible issues
Yes,
that
I
we
agree.
could possibly reconvene about. So I don't think there's any conversation that could change,
Okay.
you know,
Fair
the
enough.
problem that they're having with the gas pumps.
Okay.
So I guess with that being said, if there are no additional questions, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, given the testimony that we've heard today, I don't know, do you want a motion on should we proceed or do we want to reconvene on this?
I think we should enter a vote today as it has been presented.
All right.
We would be acceptable to conditions too. Some conditions that we discussed, we'd be open. Just
Shannon raised her hand.
Okay, Shannon, I can see that your hand is raised. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, because I think the original conversation here from the applicant was that they would meet some of the zoning variances that are being requested in terms of like the fence height and all of those things. And so I'm wondering if whatever motion is made here, if they articulate which of the variances they still needed. Based on the original conversation, it sounded like they only needed the use variance.
Sure. That's true.
And then if BZA grants the use variance, they would have to have the fencing and the appropriate landscaping. And then the second thing is that if there are additional issues around the driveway and the location and the landscaping that are outside of the variances, if the variances are granted, those things still would need to be discussed in design review because city planning has not given, the commission has not given approval for the design of the exterior modifications at this site.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. I did have it in mind to go over the variances, but I kind of lost sight of that. So why don't we take some time to do that right now? We all know that variance number 1 is certainly still on the table. Let's look now to variance number 2. Are you all still proposing an 8-foot high fence, or is there testimony that you will comply
Yes,
with the code?
yes, I want to clarify though, on number 1, it's 100 feet or a solid board-and-board fence between lot and 8-foot wide buffer strip transition. We are complying with that. We have an 8-foot wide buffer strip and a board-on-board fence, just for what it's worth for item 1.
Okay,
For item 2, we believe from meetings with neighbors that the 8-foot fence would be more appropriate, but it would require a 2-foot variance
okay. And why do you believe the 8-foot fence is more appropriate?
because it provides more screening from the neighbors. Although the light candles for any lighting, they will look to keep everything on site, but that was requested if it could be a little bit higher, so we went to 8 feet.
Understood. All right, speak to us about number 3, please.
That's also the driveway. We have, I think, complied with that. We have a 30-foot drive with 6-foot curb radius. So I think that actually complies. We eliminated the other driveway.
Okay. Chief, I can see that your hand is raised. Please chime in. Or is that an old hand?
That is an old hand, but number 1 is BZA has the ability to grant the variance if they meet those items.
Okay, got it. And then it looks like they're stating that number 3 has been complied with. Is that your understanding of what has been submitted?
That is correct.
All right, and then let's talk about number 4. Have you all complied with number 4?
We
Or still
believe
requesting
so.
variance?
We believe so.
Okay. Shannon, any disagreement with complying with number 4 as submitted?
I can't see that far into the screen here, but if they are saying that they're complying with it, they would just need to make sure that's updated in the permit portal.
Yeah, that's the wrong screen.
Okay.
It would be the modified version that we did. This was the initial stuff.
Okay, so you did submit the modified version in
Yes.
the permit portal?
Yes, it's on there, the modified version.
It was sent to this board.
Oh, okay,
not
okay.
Through the portal itself.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's how it's presented now.
All right, understood. And then it's like. Okay, so it looks like everything is still on the table except for number 3. Is that everyone else's understanding?
I think we comply with 1.
They're complying with 1,
Mm-hmm.
but they still need you all to grant the use variance for gas
Right.
station and local retail.
Yeah.
Right,
And
that's right.
then in terms of if they're keeping the 8-foot fence, they need number 2.
Yeah.
And then number 3, they say that they are complying, and number 4, they say they are complying.
Mhm.
And then that's it.
Okay,
And
so
then
we
5
will,
and 6 wouldn't be variances.
right. All right, so
Right.
we're gonna move forward with a vote as it relates to number 1, specifically the use of a gas station, and number 2. I will entertain a motion.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, given the testimony we've heard today and the clarification we've just received, I move that we approve calendar number 25-088 to bring this to a vote.
All right, is there a second?
Board Member Madison, second.
All right, can we call the vote?
Ms. Roca,
Yes.
Ms. Holzer,
No.
Mr. Madison,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
No,
and Ms. Wilson.
No.
The motion fails. Do we want to make another motion to deny?
All right, I will entertain a second motion.
Board Member Holzer, I move to deny calendar number 25-085.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
All right, call the vote.
Ms. Roca,
What? Where there's a motion to deny, is that correct?
That's correct. There's a motion to deny and we have a second.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Mr. Madison,
Yes.
Ms. Faith,
Yes to deny.
Ms. Holzer.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Calendar number 25-85 is denied. This decision will be ratified next Monday, and we will send the appellant a letter.
All right. Good luck
Thank
with
you,
your
Ms. Wilson.
project.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're now going to call the final.
Is there another case?
Oh, wait, just kidding. I was making sure y'all was paying attention. No, just kidding. I don't have the old business sheet. Does anyone have one? I
There
can look
is
at?
no old business.
Well, that
today.
explains it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I have
then,
to prepare those resolutions for you, so
okay,
you need another read.
so then it's 11:27 and we are officially going to adjourn. That concludes our
Thank you.
meeting for today. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.